City of South Tucson, Tohono O'odham Nation, Paskayaki Tribe,
Here.
Pima County,
Here.
Town of Marana,
Lisa Schaefer here.
Town of Sahuarita, Vince is from Sahuarita. Vince, can you hear? And yep, raised his hand. Thank you. Town of Oro Valley.
Here present.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is the in-kind form. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PEG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you are paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PEG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in the meeting. Time spent working on PEG, RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. We can move to item number 3. And let's see. Crystal, let me see. I'm going to share my screen. Item number 3 is the fiscal year 2023 regional transit funding programming in the PEG region. Excuse me. In the PEG region, the RTA Transit Working Group prioritizes funds using a predefined process that emphasizes FTA compliance and regional transit needs. Fiscal year 23 is considered an off year for TIP development. For these years, the Transit Working Group meets to amend the financial plan for the following year to reflect the most current estimates of funding. For our previous call for projects, we used the most recent apportionment numbers as an assumed amount, and then the state gave us the STP flex dollars. Subsequent years, the fiscal years will be updated during the TIP development cycle for the fiscal year 2024 through 2028 TIP. For our 23 call for projects, it's been a little different this year. We've been waiting to get additional details regarding the funding amounts in the new infrastructure bill and reauthorization. The new bill will increase funding to our urbanized area by approximately 20 to 30% for federal fiscal year 22 through 26. We have some House Transportation Committee funding projection tables, but there has been nothing yet published. I did attend a webinar that FTA did last Friday, and they still don't have the tables published, but there is a House Transportation Committee funding projection table, but nothing else. There will be a federal fiscal year partial apportionment that will be released at the end of January, but they are only partial and based off the levels of the FAST Act due to the continuing resolution that stays in effect that limits the apportionment until February 29th. They will release the full apportionment numbers later after appropriations. And the FTA indicated that most properties and grantees will most likely want to wait to apply until they receive the full apportionment numbers. In regards to our call for projects, and James McGinnis and I have been discussing this since he has prior knowledge on how this was done. We have looked at the House projection tables. Let me share my screen and kind of show you what those are. Can anybody see my screen?
No, not yet.
Sorry. Let's see. It is not giving me the option here. Let's see. Here we go. Can you see it? Let's see.
Yes.
Okay.
We see it now.
Yep.
I'm sorry. And so based off of the House Transportation Committee's projections, and these gave levels from 22 to 26, these are projected. They're not, they're just projected amounts, but there is a sizable increase. On the 5307, you have 18,572,000. 5340 is the growing states number, and that's 1,198,000. And that usually, and in the past, and it will with the reauthorization, be put in along with the formula funds of 5307. The 5339 funds is 1.625. And the STP Flex, these are projections from the state. And that's actually lower to 672. And the state has indicated that they anticipate 2 additional urbanized areas having viable transit programs, which means the individual apportionment numbers will be reduced in subsequent years. So I wanted to bring these numbers to the working group and just discuss our fiscal year 23 process and timeline. And in the past, we've used the 21 or the most current apportionment numbers, and those numbers currently that are published in 21 are a lot lower. And knowing what we know, and if we have these pretty solid projections from the House Transportation Committee, if we should proceed with our call, which would, I have this is just a new projection with these numbers kind of programmed in with the current programmed amounts. So there's about $4 million of additional funding. James, with the city, James, do you have any additional information that you've heard?
Hi, everyone. This is Chris Blue at the city. Unfortunately, James and the transit administrator, Rhett Crown Shield, are stuck in another meeting. So I'm attending as a proxy, but I don't have
Okay.
that, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, Steve Spade, do you have any items to add in terms of this call, or if any of the jurisdictions have any questions? I would like to proceed with these numbers, or we can wait. We can see what the partial apportionments are, see if we get some additional information. But we do know that there's going to be a 20 to 30% increase, and these numbers would reflect that.
No, Amber, this is Steve. I don't have anything else to add. I think that the projections are pretty right on with what's authorized. So, as long as the budget appropriation is at that amount, then it looks like we need to, we got the opportunity to program some more money in the next 4 or 5 years. Yes,
I think it's a great opportunity for additional funding and resources into the area. The question is do we proceed, which I feel comfortable. We may have to revisit, and when the full apportionment comes out, and that's been done in the past to kind of rectify the numbers if they're far off. But if they're genuinely accurate, then with the application on the city side, I don't think that should be a problem. Are there any additional questions? This is just an information item. I wanted to kind of discuss our timeline, and if we were okay with these projections, then we would proceed with the call in the next couple of weeks, send it out to our members, have them compiled, and then show the numbers, and we can look at the prioritization and the projects in the February meeting. So I would like to proceed. If anybody has any additional comments or questions, we will just, staff will send out the application. Okay. I think that's what our plan is. I wanted to address it with the committee. We've done that in the past. I have no other items to add other than the information that FTA is providing is kind of fast and furious. Currently, they just have just some fact sheets in terms of the programs. They will be sending out additional information. And if we receive more information in terms of this apportionment, we'll share it with the members and address it. So.
Amber, I just have a suggestion.
Yes.
There looks like there's significant funding, which is nice. It may be time, I know that Oro Valley is experiencing infrastructure, material, vehicle, significant costs. I would also suggest that in your call for projects, you have everybody look at what they've pre-submitted and, you know, in there. And it may be that these numbers need to be, if these are numbers they're just carrying forward, I would suggest they re-examine their numbers and potentially make sure that they are applicable at this time.
Yeah, I would request all jurisdictions to look at this application and look at what they previously submitted and see what their additional needs are. I mean, we're addressing in Sun Shuttle almost by the time you get funding and you apply for it, it's like 2 to 3 years when you get your bus anymore, because right now when we're ordering buses, it's going to take at least 12 to maybe even 16 months to get those vehicles. So all of those, looking at your available resources and what your needs are. Chris and Steve?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Would it make sense to wait until the end of the month when the partial apportionments are announced?
That is definitely, we could send it out. We may not, if folks knew that if we get the partial apportionment, they're still going to be on FAST Act. They're limited in terms of what they can address until the continuing resolution expires at the end of February. But we could look at that, just knowing that when we send out the information of the membership, it might be a tight time frame to see what those numbers are, if there's anything different. But then we would have the transit working group meeting in February, which would, the second Tuesday is the 8th.
I think I was going to make the point, maybe following up what Amy said, is that we just purchased cutaways and I think the price was like 25% higher. So people really need to, I mean, it'd be really helpful for people, especially on vehicle procurements, things like that. They can update their pricing to make sure that they've got the numbers right. And so I do think it makes sense to, at least from our standpoint, I think we're going to start updating those numbers, whether you fine tune the number when they've got the partial apportionment or not. I think we're going to at least start updating our capital numbers because there will be probably some sense of urgency to get this stuff in there when the time comes.
Well, yes, and we're only addressing fiscal year 23 right now because it is an off-tip development year. So when we look at 24 and beyond, we should look at all those projects, and the PAG region, we will submit all that information on the tip development end in the next, when they start working on the next tip. But the state just entered into a new contract for buses, and they're significantly higher than what they were in and probably these programmed amounts in the past. Is there any additional information or comments? I thank you. This has been just kind of a different year in terms of this infrastructure bill and knowing that there were going to be additional resources and funds in this region. So it has been a little bit different. We've held off on it and we've continued to just kind of monitor it as the information as we receive. So we will wait and look at the partial apportionment, probably release based on these projections. If anything is if there isn't anything significantly different than what we see. So moving on to item 4, we were going to do some regional transit service updates. The first one is Sun Shuttle services, and Preston's going to give a brief update on our 410 planning. Preston, are you available to give our regional transit update on 410?
Yes, I can do that now. Yeah, so due to Route 410's consistently low ridership over the years and recently, especially, during the pandemic, we've been working on determining alternative route options that can help improve those ridership numbers. And so one of our first steps in doing this was actually gathering public input from the local community in Marana and Picture Rocks. And so we held multiple town hall meetings for that input, as well as sending out surveys. And we did conclude taking these rider surveys in late November, and we did get good responses back, a good number of responses back. I think 32 completed surveys, which is much more than what we had, received during our last attempt to reroute Route 410. So that was promising. We're now working with our contractors at Total Ride, who operate these services, to work on generating various cost analyses for different alternative route options and route changes that may better serve the community in the Marana and Picture Rocks area. So that's where we're currently at right now, getting those cost analyses, determining what is feasible to do with the funds that we have. And once we receive that information, once we have compiled that, we do plan on discussing both the survey responses and the cost analyses of these different route options that we're considering with our 410 advisory committee within hopefully the next few weeks, to then take next steps in deciding, on a pilot program and a date to actually implement it in the future. So that's where we're heading. We're not there yet. We're still in the data collection phase in terms of costs of potential services, but that's where we're wanting to go. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. And that's where we're currently at in that process for the 410 route change.
Are there any questions? If there aren't any, we'll move on to the fare study analysis update. James McGinnis with the city was going to provide that, but Chris, can you provide any additional information?
Sure, I can give a quick update. I have a quick presentation I could give that I gave to the Transit Task Force recently, but I'm not sure how to broadcast that to the group. So I could just give a verbal update if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, that would be fine. You could probably send it to me and we could share it, but you can just give a verbal.
Okay, yeah, so we're a bit in limbo at the moment. I believe the last time that the consultants was here a few months ago, they provided an update which went over the peer analysis and existing conditions, and then also gave summary information of the public outreach effort that was conducted. And just a reminder for anyone who's not familiar with this grant, the city applied for and was awarded a COVID-19 research demonstration grant from the FTA back in 2019, and it's providing us funding for automatic wheelchair securement systems on our fixed route buses, as well as this fare analysis. And we've contracted Nelson Nygaard to conduct the fare analysis with a focus really on identifying a more equitable fare structure that takes into consideration safety as well during the COVID pandemic. So we're looking at upgrading our fare payment system as well. And so we're about, I would say, 3/4 of the way through the analysis. And currently we're looking at a revised and simplified fare structure, as well as incorporating new fare payment media like QR code readers on all buses, the ability to transition to an open loop system, which would allow riders to use mobile wallets and bank cards to purchase tickets or passes even. And we're also looking at incorporating fare capping, which essentially it will track the number of rides you take on the bus and cap you at a certain amount. So if you ride the bus 10 times in a month, instead of charging you, $2 each time, if you meet the threshold for a day pass or a monthly pass, you'll be capped at that amount. So we're looking at ways to make it more equitable, more affordable, and also to increase riderships. Make it easy for people and kind of incentivize folks to ride. So that's where we're at currently. We are examining the capital costs of these upgrades, but at the same time, our mayor and council has extended the fare-free period until July of 2022. And there are ongoing discussions with the ward offices and staff and the mayor to determine if we're going to remain fare-free. So that's all in play as well. And we'll certainly, kind of affect some of these outcomes. So I can provide a more concrete update perhaps at the next meeting, or well, probably won't be time, but maybe the following meeting. And we can give you a summary of the final report. And then once staff and leadership have had an opportunity to review the proposed strategy for revising the fare structure and adding these new technologies, we can go over that as well.
Okay, thank you,
Sorry,
Chris.
that was kind of impromptu. I wasn't expecting to give an update on this, but James is tied up in something, so.
No, I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much for quickly giving us an update and on the fly. I see that Steve Spade has his hand raised.
Hey, I just wanted to offer a clarification on the fare capping. The concept is that once you've ridden so many times, your fare is no longer charged. However, you continue to have unlimited rides. So we're not capping the number of rides. Simply at a certain point, it doesn't cost you anymore.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for that clarification, Steve. Sorry if I misspoke. That's essentially what I was trying to say. So it's a really nice feature that quite a few systems have implemented successfully around the country.
No, I think it would be great, particularly just when you look at our existing fare structure. I think a simplified fare structure as well as a capped one would just be awesome for the users, and it just would make it so much easier to understand, and also give value for those that utilize the system routinely. Are there any questions? So currently, the systems are fare free until July 1st. And there is discussion on whether that will remain. Sun Shuttle services, as well as the jurisdictions, have always tried to, be in lockstep in terms of regional services, including fares. It is an item that we will need to address on the Sun Shuttle side if the city is continuing to discuss remaining fare free. So that is something that we will want to look at, as well as will Sun Shuttle continue that along with SunTran and SunLink and SunVan. Currently we've always done what they've done. So we talked about it in previous meetings. It may be something we want to look at in the future. Are there any?
Well,
Yeah.
I know at the local level here in Tucson, we've looked at the pros and cons of fare free, and we're currently, providing, that assessment to the DTM leadership and city leadership. So I know the discussions are ongoing about whether we remain fare free beyond June 30 or return to fare collection. And I know from the SunTran point of view, we need at least 90 days to gear up for a change. So, we're hoping that, by April 1, we have some kind of guidance on how we should plan moving forward. Not that that'll happen, but at least that's kind of our thinking at this point.
Okay, thank you. And Chris, can we put the fare analysis update on the March agenda possibly, or the next, not in the February, but maybe in the next one after that?
Definitely. Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Next, wanted to touch base with Oro Valley on regional updates and some service changes and what we're seeing in Oro Valley.
Are you talking as far as ridership numbers?
How you're doing? You did some service changes in terms of the service delivery area a month or so ago. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that it's helped a little,
Mhm.
but because that doesn't, for us, it didn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the casino trips or maybe an airport. So those didn't happen all that often. So it definitely has an impact, but it's a small one.
The main thing, this is John, that has occurred is we simply don't have enough drivers. So we look and see how many drivers we have for the next day. And when we reach a limit of trips that we can provide for that day, we no longer accept trip requests for that day. So we are denying trips. We've been denying trips for the last
October.
and that's just the facts.
There's continuing, we're seeing in the Sun Shuttle services, particularly right now in the last couple of weeks, we're seeing our labor, there's a lot of sickness and we're still short. So it is straining the service. Steve, do you have any input on the SunTran, SunVan, SunLink area?
We have the same problem. We still have I think we're still 40 drivers short on the SunTran side. SunVan, we seem to be picking up numbers, but you're right. We used to run at about an average of 8 or 10 positive tests in our operation, and we're pushing 20 now a day that we're tracking. So those numbers are up, which are just putting more of a strain on us.
Are there any additional updates? This is a brief meeting. We are having a transit working group meeting February 8th. Any additional items that we'd like to include on the agenda or information? Well, with that, we will go to adjournment, and I thank you all for participating. As I indicated, we will hold the next meeting on February 8th. And if there are no other announcements, we'll adjourn the meeting, and thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Week.
you.
Hey, Amber, Jonathan here, if you're
Yes.
still there. Hey, could you just send out that spreadsheet that you were referring to earlier on the projections?
Yes, I can.
Cool, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, yep, take care.
Hey, thanks.